Good morning, everyone. We are excited to be here today to present our topic cloning. We are Group 8, also known as the Fantastic Six. Here are our amazing team members. Before we dive into the details of cloning, let's kick things off with an interesting video that gives us a quick insight into today's topic.
The headline on the other major news story today, to which we intend to devote some time, is very simple. Hello, Dolly.
In February of 1997, a Finn Dorset sheep named Dolly sent waves of future shock around the world.
The first living, breathing clone of an adult mammal.
It's possible we're seeing a scientific explosion comparable to the atom bomb or the moon rocket or DNA itself.
For many, it was a case of science gone too far.
Are we acting more like the creator than creatures? Are we trying to play the role of God in all this?
Predictions multiplied about just what this breakthrough would bring.
Soon it will be possible to give her thousands of absolutely identical sisters.
Animals could be cloned with human diseases and new therapies tested on them.
Endangered species can take heart.
This is not an elaborate, sophisticated technique. It means that any decent college or graduate school student could potentially clone a human being.
Whatever became of Dolly, and all that speculation about the brave new world she ushered in.
Before we start, let's imagine something together. Picture this. You have a beloved pet, maybe a dog or a cat, that you have raised for years. Now imagine you could create an exact genetic copy, a perfect twin, even after your pet is gone. Or imagine we could revive an endangered species on the brink of extinction, giving them a second chance at life. Sounds like science fiction, right? But today it is much closer to reality. And it is, thanks to cloning. Our team is thrilled to be here today to talk to you about a technology that is no longer just the stuff of movie. We will explore what is cloning, the different types of cloning, some incredible scientific breakthrough, and the ethical debates we must think carefully about, and where this technology could lead us in the future, including exciting opportunity for businesses like yours. Let's start with a moment in history that changes everything. In 1996, at the Roslin Institute in Scotland, a sheep named Dolly was born. But she wasn't just any sheep. She was the world's first mammal cloned from an adult somatic cell. This monumental achievement showed that it was possible to take the DNA from an adult animal and create an entirely new genetically identical organism. Dolly proved that cloning complex organisms wasn't just possible, but it could be reliable. And from that point on, cloning wasn't just a dream, but a real scientific tool. Since Dolly, cloning has progressed. For example, in 2009, scientists in South Korea cloned two beagle puppies. And today, there are banks, stem cell factories, where cells are frozen and stored for future cloning work. Let's see the importance of cloning. First, bank or stem cell factory. Second, cloning animal models of disease. Third, cure disease using gene therapy. So why should businesses care about cloning? Cloning has wide reach applications. For example, in medical research, scientists use cloned animal model to study about diseases and test treatments. In gene therapy, cloning helps scientists to manipulate the gene to cure the diseases. In conservation, we can save endangered species by cloning the healthy individuals. And in agriculture, we can produce livestock with the best traits. For example, higher yield, better resistance to disease, and lower production costs. Sounds better, right? Cloning could soon impact industries ranging from food production to personalized healthcare and to pharmaceutical. What exactly cloning is? Cloning is a process of creating an exact genetic copy of organism, cell, or DNA sequences. Share same genetic material, for example DNA, as original source. Cloning occurs naturally or artificially. Let's see how natural cloning works. First, organism replicate its DNA to ensure genetic material is identical to the offspring. Second, parent organism prepares for division by growing or creating specialized structure, for example like bud. Third, replicated material is physically separated into new individuals. And lastly, cloned offspring grows and develop into fully functional organism identical to the parents. On the other hand, let's see how artificial cloning works. First, nucleus containing DNA is removed from the somatic cell of an organism that need to be cloned, and nucleus is removed from an unfertilized egg cell. So the nucleus from the somatic cell is inserted into enucleated egg. Reconstructed egg is stimulated chemically or electrically to start dividing. Developed embryo is implanted into surrogate mother. Here is the comparison between the natural cloning and the artificial cloning. Natural cloning occurs naturally due to biological mechanism without human intervention. For example, like asexual reproduction, like binary fission and budding. Secondly, identical twins, like fertilized eggs split into two embryos. The process of natural cloning including mitosis, splitting of embryos, vegetative reproduction in plants. And the purpose of this cloning is to reproduce, survival, and propagation. Natural cloning genetically identical to the parents and the siblings. Meanwhile, artificial cloning performed intentionally by human using biotechnology. Example, reproductive cloning, therapeutic cloning, and gene cloning. The process involves laboratory techniques, for example, like somatic nuclear cell transfer, genetic engineering, and the purpose of these artificial clonings are for research, conservation, medicine, biotechnology, and agriculture. Artificial cloning genetically identical to the donor nucleus. Now, let's quickly outline what you will learn from us today. First, Iridina will explain the different types of cloning, focusing especially on reproductive cloning, creating an entirely new organism. Next, Devin will introduce you to therapeutic cloning and gene cloning, two exciting areas with huge business and healthcare potential. Then Gaia will share some of the greatest scientific breakthroughs in cloning, including how they are already reshaping the industry. After that, Ritesh will guide us through the very important point of ethical consideration because with great power comes great opportunities. Finally, Rachel will close by showing us the future potential of cloning and what it could mean for the business ready to invest in the future. Our goal today is not to overwhelm you with complicated science. Instead, we want to open a window into a fascinating world and show you why cloning matters for innovation, investment, and leadership in the years ahead. You don't have to be a scientist To understand or to appreciate this cloning, you just have to be curious and open to new possibilities. So buckle up. It's going to be an exciting journey. And speaking of journeys, let's start at the very beginning. What exactly are the different types of cloning? To answer that, here is Irdina.
Thank you, Jay. I am Irdina Alia, and today I will be continuing the presentation. So, now that we're excited about cloning, let's break it down. What type of cloning are there, and what do they actually do? So, broadly speaking, cloning falls into three categories. From the slide here, you can tell that there's three cloning types, which are reproductive cloning, therapeutic cloning, and gene cloning. So, my part today, I will be focusing on reproductive cloning, which to many people is the classic making an identical copy idea. So, what is reproductive cloning? Reproductive cloning is the process of creating a whole living organism that's genetically identical to another organism. Think about photocopying a document. So in this case, the document is a cow, a sheep, or potentially even a human being someday. The goal here isn't to create tissues or cells, but an entire living creature. This is the kind of cloning that produced Dolly the sheep from Jay's previous presentation, the very first successful mammal clone. So, how does this work? The main technique used in reproductive cloning is somatic cell nuclear transfer, or SCNT. So, in simpler steps, here how it works. Firstly, we extract the DNA from a somatic cell, meaning cell of any cell of the body, like the skin or the muscle cells. We then remove the nucleus, which contains the DNA, from an egg cell. And then we insert the somatic DNA into the nucleated egg. We then stimulate the egg, often with a small electric shock, so that it started to divide like a normal fertilized egg. After that, we will continue to implant the developing embryo in a surrogate mother, where it will grow like a normal pregnancy until it is given birth. If everything goes well, the resulting animal will be a genetic copy of the original DNA donor. So, now it sounds easy on paper, but it's actually incredibly delicate and very complex in practice. And unfortunately, the success rates are still incredibly low. We already have a real-world example beyond Dolly. So, if you are curious what other real-world examples are there, I will explain it to you. So, in South Korea, researchers have begun cloning beagle puppies. Yeah, beagle puppies. And in the US, cows with superior meat production also have been cloned. This has shown incredible improve in the milk production in the US. And in Texas, there was a company offering pet cloning service. Yes, pet cloning service. Crazy, right? You can clone your dog or cat for around $50,000 to $100,000. So, how does technology works? And so the technology really works and it's improving all the time. So, why should businesses, especially those in agriculture and healthcare and food industry, care about reproductive cloning? So, firstly, in the agriculture world, cloning allows farmers to duplicate animals with superior genetic traits. Superior genetic traits include faster growing rate, more milk, better milk quality, and higher disease resistance. This could massively increase efficiency and profit while reducing reliance on antibiotics. Other than that, the conservation field will also benefit from cloning, as cloning endangered species could help maintain biodiversity, which is important for industry relying on natural ecosystem like tourism and forestry. And for the future of medicine, one day cloning could help grow genetically matched organs in large animals for human transplantation, which will significantly solve one of the biggest problems in healthcare today, which is the organ shortages. Cloning became a tool for future-proofing industries. Another method besides SCNT is also called embryo splitting. So, how does embryo splitting work? Here, scientists create an embryo through in vitro fertilization, then it splits into two or more identical embryos early in the development. Kind of like creating natural twins or triplets, but in a controlled environment, such as in the lab. So this method is simple, but it has its limitation. It can only create a few identical individuals at a time, compared to SCNT, which can be scaled up. Embryo splitting has been used in cattle breeding to boost valuable bloodlines in the industry of dairy and beef. Of course, reproductive cloning isn't without problems. So, what are the problems involving reproductive cloning? Firstly, reproductive cloning success rates are still relatively low. Often less than 10% of cloned embryos survived to birth. Many clones suffer from developmental issues or health problems, which is not really easy to combat. Other than that, there is also a public perception challenge that we need to address because many consumers feels uneasy about eating cloned animals and their products. These are important businesses consideration when thinking about real-world applications. Now that we explore reproductive cloning, which is essentially making an entire organism, what about cloning that aims to heal the human body or copy genes for medicine? Let's hand it over to Devin to explore therapeutic cloning and gene cloning. Thank you.
Thank you for the very wonderful presentation, Igina. So far, we have talked about cloning the entire animal, which is amazing. But it is important to know that the function of cloning is not limited only to produce a new organism, but it can also be used to heal, to cure, and also to revolutionize certain industries like medicine and agriculture. So today, I'll walk you through two powerful types of cloning, namely the therapeutic cloning and also the gene cloning. Both are less about making a copy and more about creating specific tools for health, science, and also business. So let's move on to the first type of cloning, which is the therapeutic cloning. So before moving further, I would like to emphasize the meaning of therapeutic cloning. So therapeutic in this context means to heal and also to cure. So basically, therapeutic cloning focuses on creating cells, tissues, or even the entire organ without the need of cloning the entire living creature. So imagine in a world where someone has damaged their heart and the only treatment option is to undergo an organ transplantation. So the problem with organ transplantation is actually that one is the waiting list of donors recipients is just way too long, and even if someone comes up first in the list, there is always a risk of tissue rejection. So what doctors could do is that they could utilize therapeutic cloning in order to grow a brand new heart by using your own DNA, which is perfectly matched with zero risk of rejection. So that is the dream that therapeutic cloning is actually chasing. So the process is very similar to reproductive cloning, whereby it utilizes somatic cell nuclear transfer as well, but instead of implanting the embryo into a surrogate, scientists grows it into a blastocyst stage, which is also known as a hollow ball of cells, and then harvest the stem cells. So many may wonder, what are actually stem cells? Stem cells are actually undifferentiated set of cells which are very special because they tend to be pluripotent. So pluripotent in this context means they can, since they are undifferentiated cells, so and they are being pluripotent, so these undifferentiated cells can actually differentiate to almost any kind of cells in the body. For instance, it could be muscle, it could be bone, it could be even nerves, skin, and literally anything. So by harvesting stem cells from clone embryo, researchers can actually create new tissues for burn victims, especially those like second and third degree burn onwards. Can also do replacement of neurons for people with Parkinson diseases, and also produce insulin producing cells for diabetic patients, especially type 1 diabetes patients, and also to create a healthy heart muscles after a heart attack. And since the stem cells come from the patient's own DNA, there is almost no risk of rejection. And as we know, uh, rejection of the organs are actually a main problem in organ transplant today. So there are many uses of therapeutic cloning. So for the very first aspect, we are going to look at the business aspect, and also first we're going to look at the regenerative medicine. So in regenerative medicine, therapeutic cloning is used to treat regenerative diseases like diabetes. And also this therapeutic cloning can also be used to create organs or tissues which could eliminate long transplant wait list. It could also open an entirely new industry for tailor-made specific patient-specific treatment, because we know different patients have different genetic buildup, and there is a need for tailor-made treatment specific to the patient's genotype. Next, pharmaceutical testing. So instead of testing drugs on animals or generalized samples, companies could now grow patient-specific tissues in a lab. So this is faster, safer, and the most important is more ethical. So looking into the ethical aspect of this issue, it can eliminate the need of laboratory animals, and also we know that testing products on laboratory animals sometimes could be not aligned with the welfare issues. So by this method, we can actually improve the welfare of animals, especially laboratory animals. Next is personalized medicine. So imagine cancer treatment that are designed specifically for your unique genetic makeup. So cloning could actually make this possible. So it is an industry projected to be worth millions, and cloning could be the key that unlocks it. Now, let us move on to gene cloning. Gene cloning is a bit different, but it is just as important as therapeutic cloning. In therapeutic cloning is used to clone cells, tissues, and organs. But genetic cloning, it is not about cloning a whole organism or a whole set of cells. It is about copying a specific gene or a DNA sequence. This specific gene or DNA sequence is known as gene of interest. The goal is to create many identical copies of one piece of DNA, which is also known as the gene of interest, so that scientists and industries can actually conduct studies on it, manipulate it, or even use it in order to create a new product. So I'll explain how genetic cloning works. First, we need to identify the gene that we really want to clone. So for instance, let us talk about gene that produces insulin. So our gene of interest is actually gene that produces insulin. So we need to identify the gene that produces insulin. Then we need to cut out the gene by using special enzymes, and we then insert the gene of interest into a carrier. A carrier is usually a plasmid. So what is a plasmid? Plasmid is actually a component of the bacteria that helps to protect the nucleic acid of the particular bacteria, which helps to ensure its survivability. So now the plasmid is, we use plasmid as the protector of the gene of interest, and then this plasmid is then introduced into a host organism. A host organism is commonly a bacteria or a yeast. Then we will grow the host organism and it will copy the gene every time it divides. So it's like setting up a tiny biological factory to mass produce the DNA that we want, which is the gene of interest. So gene cloning has a massive real world applications, many of which we are already using in our daily lives. For instance, we're going to look in the medical field. So example is production of insulin for diabetic patient. As we all know, diabetes patients, especially type 1 diabetes mellitus, in patients with type 1 diabetes mellitus, they are unable to produce sufficient insulin in order to lower the blood glucose level. So by using gene cloning, we can use the gene that codes for insulin production and inject it into the diabetic patient in order to enhance the production of insulin in diabetes patient. And this is one of the first major successes of gene cloning. Not only that, gene cloning can also be used to develop vaccines and therapies for certain genetic diseases. Now, the usage of gene cloning is not only limited to medicine but also in agricultural process, in which in agriculture it is used to create genetically modified crop that is resistant to pests, diseases, and harsh environmental conditions. So this can boost crop yields to which can fight food insecurities worldwide. So when we create genetically modified crop that are resistant to pests, basically there is a reduce in the need of pesticides. Then it can also be used in scientific researches, whereby scientists can use gene cloning in order to study about genes to have a better understanding on certain diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, or even rare genetic mutations. So gene cloning is essentially the engine behind the booming biotech industry in our country. Not only that, gene cloning is also useful in the pharmaceutical companies, whereby these pharmaceutical companies use gene cloning in order to manufacture many life-saving drugs effectively and at a larger scale. Not only that, without genetic cloning, much of this modern biotech simply wouldn't exist. So let me tell a quick story. So before genetic cloning was first introduced, insulin for diabetic patient was actually extracted from pancreases of pigs and cows. However, this is a very slow, expensive, and sometimes could be dangerous to the users. So thanks to genetic cloning, scientists now is able to extract insulin producing gene from a healthy human being and also introduce it in bacteria and inject it into patients with diabetes mellitus type 1. So these bacteria could now produce pure human compatible insulins, which are safe, cheap, and at a large scale. So these single breakthrough have improved millions of lives and launched the entire biotechnology revolutions. So of course, any of the new technologies have its own challenges too. So gene cloning requires high precision, which means even a very small mistake could cause serious problem in the consumers. So in short, therapeutic and gene cloning aren't about copying life, but they are used to enhance the quality of life, to protect it, and also to reshape industry for a better future. So speaking of breakthroughs, how did we get here? Let's dive into the amazing scientific achievement that paved the way. So I will now pass the presentation to the next presenter, Gayatri. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Now that we know cloning isn't just about making copies, let's talk about cloning made the leap from science fiction to real-world business opportunity through a major scientific breakthrough. First, what exactly is a scientific breakthrough? A scientific breakthrough is a discovery or achievement that dramatically changes what we know or can do, often opening up entire new industries or ways of life. Think about the invention of electricity, or the launch of the internet, or the release of the first iPhone. These were not just improvements, they reshaped the world. Cloning had its own iPhone moment, and it started with the ship named Dolly. In 1996, scientists who are Ian Wilmot and Keith Campbell at the Roslin Institute in Scotland achieved something incredible. They took a somatic cell, an ordinary mammary gland cell, from an adult sheep. Then they removed the nucleus of that cell and inserted into an empty egg cell, a cell whose own nucleus had been removed. They stimulated the egg with an electric pulse to trick it into thinking it had been fertilized. And then they implanted it into a surrogate mother sheep. The result, Dolly, which is the first mammal ever cloned from an adult somatic cell. This wasn't just an experiment. It was a breakthrough that proved something many scientists thought was impossible, that mature adult cells could be reprogrammed back to their embryonic state and could grow into a whole new organism. Why was Dolly so important? Before Dolly, scientists believed that once a cell specialized, for an example, becoming a skin cell or a nerve cell, it is stuck in that role forever. However, Dolly shattered that belief. She proved that mature cell could be reset and reprogrammed by opening the door to everything from therapeutic cloning to regenerative medicine. Without Dolly, we wouldn't have stem cell therapies, organ cloning experiments, or even advanced genetic research. She literally changed what was possible for science and for business. Since Dolly, cloning has taken off across multiple industries, such as agricultural cloning. Farmers are cloning livestock with exceptional traits to produce cows that produces more milk, pigs that are resistant to disease, in order to improve the productivity, lower the cost, and reduces the need for antibiotics. These are all the key concerns in modern agriculture. For agribusinesses, this means more reliable herds, better yields, and stronger food security with less environmental impact. Secondly, as for conservation efforts, scientists are using cloning to preserve endangered species like Zawolsky's horse, which is a rare and ancient breed of wild horse that was once extinct in the wild. And this cloning could help to bring back the lost genetic diversity and restore fragile ecosystems. In a time when climate change is pushing many species to the brink, cloning could literally help to save the biodiversity, which is something vital in order to sustain the economy. And moreover, the extinction program. Yes, scientists are even exploring to revive extinct species like the woolly mammoth by combining the preserved DNA and with the modern elephant DNA. Even recently, scientists managed to bring back dire wolf this year. While even though it's controversial, it shows how far cloning technology has come to and how wide the possibilities are. For businesses, these breakthroughs aren't just exciting, they are very actionable, such as agricultural technology companies can produce elite herds who are tailored for maximum profitability. Biotech firms can pioneer therapies that heal rather than just treat, and also conservation projects can partner with businesses to protect the species and to boost the sustainability credential and brand reputation. Cloning isn't just about science anymore. It is about creating strategic advantages in competitive industries. Now guys, let's take a quick case study. In Brazil, some beef companies have started cloning elite cattle with superior muscle mass. By doing this, they produce more and more meat per cow and cut down the feed costs, and also to reduce the greenhouse emission per pound of beef produced. In a world moving towards greener, more efficient agriculture, cloning gives these companies a real competitive edge, and investors are taking notice. Of course, cloning breakthroughs still faces challenges, such as firstly, cloning remains expensive, although the costs are dropping steadily. Secondly, the success rates can be low, but not every cloned embryos survives to birth. Then, as we know, public opinion is divided, as many people are uneasy about cloned animals entering the food chain. For businesses, managing this risk will be just as important as leveraging the opportunities. But of course, just because we can do something doesn't always mean that we should do something, and this is where ethics come in. Hence guys, in order to guide us through the important ethical consideration of cloning, let's us lend our ears and hand it over to Ritesh.
Thanks, Gaya. Now we have seen how cloning offers incredible opportunities from agriculture to medicine to conservation. But just because something is scientifically possible doesn't automatically make it right or risk-free. That's where ethics comes into the conversation. Today, I'll guide you through the main ethical concerns surrounding cloning. concerns that businesses, investors, and policymakers must carefully consider. Why ethics matter in cloning? In any possible technology, ethics serve as the guardrails, helping us to use innovation, responsibility, and also fairly. In cloning, ethical issues touch not just individuals, but the whole ecosystem and also the future generations, and the trust between businesses and the public. If cloning is handled recklessly, it could cause real harm, not just to the animals, but to the environment and most importantly, to the public trust as well. So let's walk through the key ethical considerations you need to know. First, health effects. Cloning, particularly reproductive cloning, has a relatively low success rate, and in fact, many cloned animals suffer from serious health problems. A phenomenon known as the large offspring syndrome can include symptoms that include oversized organs, weakened immune systems, and also even breathing difficulties, and even premature death. Statistically, only about 27% of cloned embryos survive to birth, and of those, about 30% die soon after. Imagine being a farmer now. You're cloning and cattle to increase meat production and also meat production, but ending up with animals that are too sick to even survive. It's not just heartbreaking, it's bad for the businesses too. Animal welfare organizations have raised serious concerns, arguing that cloning often causes unnecessary suffering to the animal. Second, cloning reduces the genetic diversity. When you clone an organism, you are creating an exact copy. No new genetic material is being introduced to the animal or in the natural population. In the natural environment, genetic diversity acts like an insurance. It helps species to survive diseases and adapt to changing environments, and they help to evolve them over time. If businesses cloned herds of identical animals, a single disease could wipe them all out at once. It could lead to a catastrophic and even economical challenges and also ecological losses. Reduced diversity also makes livestock less adaptable to the climate changes or any introduction to new pathogen and other unpredictable challenges. Third, ethical questions arise around embryo use and destruction. In therapeutic cloning, embryos are created specifically for stem cell research and then destroyed before even developing into a full organism. Some people, based on their ethical and religious beliefs, argue that creating and destroying embryos for scientific purposes is wrong. It equates to destroying potential life. This debate mirrors many of the same discussions seen around stem cell research and also in vitro fertilization. Businesses involved in therapeutic cloning must navigate this sensitive area carefully in respect to the regulation and also diverse viewpoints to maintain public trust. Fourth, we must consider accessibility and fairness in this case. If cloning technologies become widespread, who will get access to it? Will it be only healthy individuals who can afford cloned organs, cloned livestock, and gene therapies, or the smallholder farmers as well? There's a real risk that cloning could widen social inequalities, with the rich benefiting while the poorer communities are left behind. For businesses, ethical leadership means not only innovating but also advocating for fair and affordable access to these breakthroughs. Here are a few examples. A biotech company that clones cattle could choose to sell only to the wealthy industrial farms, or it could partner with global organizations to make disease-resistant livestock available for small farmers in developing countries. Their second choice isn't just ethical, but it could open up entirely new emerging markets while building global goodwill. Ethical strategies aren't just about doing the right thing, they are about the long-term smart business to sustain. Lastly, businesses must be sensitive to public perception. Even if cloning is legal, public unease could harm sales, investment, or even partnerships. If consumers feel uncomfortable about eating cloned beef or supporting companies that destroy embryos, that feeling could turn into a huge market loss, or even protests, or even legal restriction. Building transparent, responsible cloning practices is the way forward, and it will be crucial for the businesses entering this field. Let's try a quick thought experiment. Suppose you clone a champion racehorse to win more races. Most people might say, sure, that's fine. But what about cloning a human athlete to build a sports dynasty, such as Kobe Bryant or even the great Maradona? Or what about cloning a loved ones who passed away? Where do we draw the ethical line here? And who gets to decide it? As cloning technology advances, these are the complex questions society and businesses will increasingly have to answer from the public. To sum up, businesses considering cloning-related ventures must prioritize animal welfare and also maintain genetic diversity wherever it's possible. They must also navigate sensitive issues like embryo use, respectfully, and also legally. Most importantly, they must build the trust through transparency and public dialogue with whoever arise any questions about it and not just shut them off. In short, ethics isn't just a barrier to a business, it's the foundation level of a sustainable success in the era of cloning. Now that we have explored the opportunities and challenges, what does the future actually hold of cloning? How could it shape the industries and economies in the next 10, 20, or 50 years? To talk about it, let's welcome my next roommate, Rachel, to talk about the future responsibilities. Thank you.
All right, so now that we have seen both the incredible opportunities and the serious ethical challenges of cloning, let us look forward to what could cloning achieve in the next few decades and how might it impact businesses, industries, and society at large. So, in this final part of our presentation, I will walk you through the future potential of cloning and wrap up with some key conclusions to leave you thinking about what is possible. Firstly, the future of medicine could be completely transformed by cloning. So you can imagine hospitals where instead of waiting for months or even years for an organ donor, a patient's own cells is used to grow a custom organ, a new heart, a new kidney, or even pancreas. So all biologically identical to that particular patient. So they wouldn't face any rejection or lifetime of immune suppressing drugs. So, therapeutic cloning could finally offer permanent cures for diseases like Parkinson's, diabetes, spinal cord injuries, and many more. So, this could also mean that regenerative healthcare becomes the new normal in our current situation. So, not just treating symptoms, but actually restoring the particular patient back to full health. In agriculture, cloning could create super livestock that are healthier and more productive and more sustainable. So, farmers could clone cattle that are naturally resistant to diseases like foot and mouth or mad cow diseases, reducing the need for antibiotics and medical intervention. This could lower the cost, boost yield, and improve food security, especially critical as the global population will be approaching close to 10 billion by 2050. So, cloning could also be used to preserve the rare breeds and heirloom crops, maintaining biodiversity even as climate change reshapes farming conditions. In conservation, cloning could help reverse extinction trends by cloning endangered animals or even resurrecting recently extinct species such as the dire wolf. So, scientists could restore lost pieces of ecosystems and preserve the genetic diversity for future generations. Conservation cloning could safeguard iconic species like tigers, rhinos, polar bears, which will not be kept just in zoos, but they will also be reintroduced into their natural habitats. So, in partnership with conservation organizations, businesses, they could play a key role in funding and applying this technology to protect our planet's biodiversity. In the education and research field, cloning opens new possibilities as well. So, veterinary schools could clone animals for hands on trainings without risking rare or endangered species. Scientists could also clone rare cells for studying genetic diseases, cancer therapy, or new drug treatments. And gene cloning, it will continue to fuel breakthroughs in personalized medicines. So treatments will be tailored exactly according to a person's DNA profile. The economic opportunities for cloning, they are very vast, and the analysts, they predict that regenerative medicine could be $100 billion industry in the next 20 years. So biotechnology, agricultural innovation, and conservation efforts driven by cloning could create an entirely new sector and job markets. So for investors, entrepreneurs, and business leaders that are willing to navigate the challenges responsibly, cloning could be the next major frontier for growth and innovation. As usual, challenges will remain, so cost will continue to fall, making cloning accessible to more industries and regions. So the cost must fall down, or else it wouldn't be accessible to a lot of us. Public acceptance must be earned through transparency and ethical practices, and the regulations must evolve to ensure safety, fairness, and protection for both the human and the environment. Businesses, they can innovate and lead ethically. If they can do that, they will be the ones to succeed. Because at the end of the day, cloning is neither good nor bad. It's a very powerful tool. So how we use it will determine whether it heals, helps, and uplifts the humanity or causes harm and division. So the future of cloning depends entirely on the decisions made today, not just by the scientists, but by the leaders in business and our society. So in conclusion, cloning is no longer a far off dream because it's already making transforming industries. It offers breathtaking opportunities in the healthcare, agriculture, conservation, and beyond that. But it demands responsible innovation, strong ethics, and thoughtful leadership. Only then this is all possible. So, as future business leaders, partners, and investors, you all have the opportunity to guide cloning to the next chapter. So, ensuring it serves not just profit, but it also serves the people and planet too. That's all from our group. Thank you so much for joining us on this exciting journey today, and we can't wait to see what the future holds for all of us.